What is being documented today in the heart of Tehran is that more than 100 planes are attacking the Iranian capital, with more than 250 bombs, and even the first ever shoot-down of an Iranian fighter jet in the air by an Israeli F-35, which marks an unprecedented event. And while that was happening, Iran kept spreading the fire throughout the region. And pay attention, because in this update on the 5th day, there are 3 things that will stick in your mind. The massive blow against the Iranian security apparatus in Tehran. The war is no longer just Israel and the United States against Iran, because now it involves many countries. And the message from Washington, which, whether we like it or not, is setting the pace today. Greetings, I'm Ari, with a new update from Israel on the 5th day of this war, which is now regional. And the feeling, at least from here, is that every day a piece moves, and one that completely changes the board. Sometimes it's not a missile, sometimes it's a rumor, sometimes it's an image that turns out to be old, and sometimes it's an air operation so big that it makes it clear we're no longer seeing an exchange of blows, but a campaign to dismantle a regime. From the inside. And that's exactly where I want to start, with the events in Tehran. According to reports from the Israeli Defense Forces, the Israeli Air Force carried out large-scale attacks in eastern Tehran against a huge military complex that, in simple terms, was like a hub where several parts of the Iranian security apparatus operated. There is talk of more than 100 fighter jets involved in the operation and more than 250 bombs dropped. The important thing here is not just the number. What's important is what they say was inside that complex. Headquarters, generals, and personnel of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Intelligence Directorate, the Basij, cyber units, and internal security special forces, and even the unit in charge of suppressing protests. If you hear this list and don't recognize it, let me explain it to you simply. What is known by its initials as the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard. It's not Iran's regular army. It's the regime's most ideological, political, and influential structure. And within that, the Quds Force is the branch that operates abroad, the one that manages networks, alliances, and operations on different fronts. The Basij, for its part, is that paramilitary component that's used a lot for internal control, meaning protests, dissent, and surveillance. So, what was attacked today, as reported, wasn't just any base. It was part of the nerve center of the regime's security. An Israeli air base commander described the scene from the air, saying that seconds before dropping the bombs, he looked to the sides while flying in his warplane and saw dozens of planes flying alongside him, practically unopposed, dropping precision munitions by the ton and destroying the designated targets. Here's the key that many people aren't seeing. When an air force operates like this, with that density of planes and that kind of freedom, we're not just talking about attacking, we're talking about establishing air superiority. And in a modern war, when you control the skies, can you then say how long the conflict will last? And this is important, because in wars like these, the issue of leadership, beyond the gossip that might be going around, the rumors, is actually part of the strategy. There is a lot of uncertainty regarding Khamenei's son, Mojtaba Khamenei. Reports on the 2nd day of the war indicated that Mojtaba had been eliminated in the first attacks on Saturday. I myself shared that news with you, which by Sunday had been confirmed. However, earlier today, various media outlets claimed that he survived the attacks and that he would be ready to become the next supreme leader of the Iranian regime. What I'm telling you is based on the reports that started circulating very early today, here in Israel and in the region, and this is where things get murky. A couple of hours ago, right before I started recording this video, rumors began to circulate that he had been eliminated this very afternoon, just a few hours ago, in the latest joint attacks by Israel and the United States. What I can responsibly tell you here is that at this point, this is moving between reports, rumors, and conflicting versions, and that in itself already says a lot. Because when a regime goes into information blackout mode or into a war of narratives, it's because it's been hit, or it's disorganized, or both. And this connects with something that happened today, and we could call it the day when everyone came back to life. Because there are people you don't even know if they're dead, if they've come back to life, or if they were brought back on purpose. Because the case of Khamenei's son isn't the only one. In different media outlets, both Israeli and even Iranian, it was reported that former president of Iran, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, was seen, even though he had previously been confirmed dead in earlier reports. Well, it was reported that he was supposedly seen today, Wednesday, at the funeral of one of his bodyguards who were killed in an attack. But, well, I started looking into it and found that the supposed images of Ahmadinejad circulating on the internet are actually from an old video from January 28th during a funeral and burial ceremony related to the mother of Sayyid Hassan Musavi. That video was later posted on an Instagram account on February 15th. Before I dive in, I want to share with you the story of this vial, which amazed me and I think you should know about too. This vial holds an unbelievable story that was unheard until now. Inside is earth from the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, rescued by archaeologists after thousands of years of history were dumped as rubble. It is our opportunity to prevent history from disappearing. Start the new year with a personal connection to Jerusalem. Click the link in bio or scan the code to enjoy a special offer. Say, it's not true that he was seen alive today. This is just another piece of misinformation, so be careful. I'm not saying that he's dead or that they know him, or on the contrary, that he's alive. I just want to point out the contradictions in the facts reported by the media. While we're experiencing this whole war live and in real time, it requires us to verify information very carefully. And why does this matter? Because in war, misinformation isn't an accessory or an accident, it's a weapon. And if you watch an old video as if it were from today, your understanding of the conflict changes completely. That's why, every time you read that a certain person appeared or that someone's death was confirmed, well, take a breath, wait, cross-check sources, and don't let your emotions lead you to share that as if it were the truth. We need to verify the information very carefully. All right, now let's go back to the military front because besides Tehran, today a very specific target was also reported. In Isfahan, there's talk of a facility used by the regime for the storage, production, and launching of ballistic missiles, including the famous Ghadar missiles. In Isfahan, in the west of Iran. To make it easy for you to understand, if you want to reduce the capacity to launch missiles, you don't just attack the launcher, you attack the logistics, where they're stored, where they're produced, where they're prepared. Because without logistics, the missiles simply can't be launched. And here's another fact that keeps repeating as a pattern. Since this campaign started, it is claimed that the Israeli Air Force has used more than 5,000 munitions since the beginning of the operation. Only Israel, and obviously they continue consolidating air superiority with special emphasis on Tehran. At the same time, something that is historic was also reported, at least in terms of aerial symbolism. For the first time in history, an F-35I fighter jet from the Air Force, in this case Israeli, shot down an Iranian plane, a Yak-130 of Russian manufacture over Tehran. The Yak-130. What is it used for? It's an advanced training aircraft that can also function as a light attack plane. It's not the best fighter in the world, but in the end, it's a manned aircraft. And seeing it fall from the sky over the Iranian capital sends a very clear message. Israel is not only striking on the ground, it's also contesting and winning the skies over Iran. And now we get to the American component, because today the United States not only spoke, today it showed. And in war, that's what the United States Central Command published. Images of the deployment and launch of the new precision strike missiles, known as PRSM, against targets in Iran. This is presented as the combat debut of this system. This missile, to put it simply, is an evolution of the old ATACMS, launched from HIMARS-type platforms and designed to hit targets at long distances with great precision, and more. While that was happening, images were documented showing the destruction of the corvette or the Iranian ship Iris Dina by a United States submarine. There is talk of about 80 Iranian sailors killed. In addition, it is reported that U.S. forces have attacked or sunk more than 20 Iranian vessels. And that last night, the legendary warship of the Soleimani class was added to the list. We're talking about sinking roughly 20% of the Iranian fleet in 5 days, which is estimated to be around 100 units, with these 20 being the largest in the Persian fleet. And look at this objectively. When in just a few days missile and drone launches are reduced, when infrastructure is hit, when ships are sunk, when new weapons are used, the message isn't just that we're attacking them, the message is that we're annihilating them. And this is when a conflict can quickly move toward an operational collapse. On the other hand, because right now Iran, despite all the attacks it has absorbed, continues to strike forcefully. But how long can it keep up that pace? That's the real question. I would love to know your opinion here in the comments. Let me know what you think about this whole war. I really enjoy reading the comments you leave, your insights, and your perspective. Because in the end, you are in different countries, and this allows us to understand reality as each of you is experiencing it from where you are. And all of this then connects us with the message from General Dan Caney, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the United States. According to his statements, the number of ballistic missile launches from Iran has decreased by 86% compared to the first day of combat. And just in the last 24 hours, it has dropped another 23%. He also said that the launches of Iranian explosive drones have decreased by 73% compared to the first days of the operation. Up to this point, it sounds like Iran is losing steam, but we can't ignore the reality. Iran, even weakened, is still trying to open more fronts. On this 5th day of war, it is reported that Iran has launched 17 waves of attacks across the region against 14 different nations since the beginning of the war. Today, Saturday. That is no longer a specific retaliation. That's an attempt to regionalize the conflict, to force many countries to get involved, even if only for self-defense. And within that, it's reported that Iran attacked Turkey and Greece. Who are the new participants, the new members who have been invited to this war? In addition, Iran threatens to attack Israeli embassies around the world if Israel attacks the Iranian embassy in Beirut. In relation to all the attacks that the IDF is carrying out against the terrorist group Hezbollah there in Lebanon, the message is attributed to an Iranian military spokesperson. And now, something very important before we continue. If you want to keep understanding this conflict without noise, without exaggerations, and with real context, and at least regarding how I try to filter the information, subscribe to the channel, because this isn't going to calm down tomorrow. And if you want to take it a step further, remember that memberships are available. With that, you get access to a private news group on WhatsApp where we share updates throughout the day, directly from here, from Israel, with first-hand news and videos and images that are exclusive. All right, now there's a tactical detail that was seen in a video, and I find it very revealing about how Israel is moving in the air. It was shown that Israeli aircraft units operate mainly against Iran, but also to a lesser extent against Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. And it's striking that in the chart shared by the IDF, many planes approach Iran from northern Iraq. And why is this route used? Why not just travel straight? Because according to the strategy, and among many other things and possible reasons, in case any of the Israeli planes are shot down or a technical problem arises and the pilot has to abandon the plane, as has already happened to some American pilots, it's preferable for this to happen over Kurdish territory. The Kurds, especially in northern Iraq, have historically been strategic allies of Israel, and it's no secret that Iran has been launching sporadic attacks against Kurdish areas for years. It's also no secret that, according to multiple reports, over the years, the Israeli Mossad has had operations and intelligence presence in that region, which would facilitate a possible rescue or evacuation in case any mishap occurs with the Israeli pilots, and with contingency plans for the what-if scenario, because that's ultimately what saves lives. And while this is happening, the Lebanon front remains active. And here you can't get distracted, because Hezbollah made the decision to join the campaign alongside Iran. As I told you in the previous update, today there were reports of powerful bombings in the city of Tyre in southern Lebanon. The spokesperson for the Israel Defense Forces called in Arabic for all residents of southern Lebanon to evacuate their homes and to move north of the demarcated line of the Litani River. In the last 24 hours, the Air Force attacked Beirut, completing another wave of strikes against Hezbollah infrastructure. The attack on an underground weapons depot and a headquarters used by the terrorist organization is mentioned. A site that was used as infrastructure to carry out terrorist acts, gather intelligence, and at the same time operate for propaganda purposes was also attacked. And something that is repeated and worth mentioning is that before the attacks, measures were taken to reduce the risk to civilians, advance warnings, use of precision weapons, and aerial surveillance. Israel, in these cases, usually even drops leaflets from the air so that the civilian population has time to evacuate the areas that will later be attacked by Israel. The declared stance is clear then. Israel acts firmly against Hezbollah's decision to join the campaign under the umbrella of the Iranian regime and not allow any harm to come to the citizens of Israel. It is estimated that the Israeli army will now begin a massive ground campaign inside Lebanon with tanks and infantry, which will lead us to a different war than the one we are experiencing right now. Well, with everything we are going through, there is a question that many people ask. How do you reach the level of precision needed to eliminate a figure like Khamenei? Well, as I told you in the previous video, it's a matter of days before we start seeing the details, before we start learning all those things that led to this elimination. And just today, something focused on intelligence was shared. According to a report from the Financial Times, years before the airstrike that killed Ayatollah Ali Khamenei this Saturday, Israeli intelligence had been discreetly monitoring the daily routine in Tehran. It is said that almost all of the traffic cameras had been hacked by Israel years before, with encrypted recordings sent to Israeli servers. For example, a camera angle is mentioned on Pasteur Street, near Khamenei's complex, which would have allowed them to observe the routines of bodyguards and drivers, where they parked, when they arrived, and whom they were escorting. That information would have been integrated into algorithms to build the lives, detailed profiles with addresses, schedules, and above all, who was being protected and transported. And it is said then that this surveillance flow was one of many that feed Israel's intelligence system, combining signal interception from Unit 8200, human sources from Mossad, and large-scale data analysis. According to that same report, when U.S. and Israeli intelligence determined that Khamenei would attend a meeting on Saturday morning at his compound, the opportunity was considered unusual. President of the UNED, in which the UNED unit was presented, the UNED President Law. U.S. intelligence reportedly confirmed through a human source that the meeting was taking place as planned, a level of certainty considered necessary for a target of that size. After the confirmation came the powerful attack that we all saw. And I'll close today's update with a reflection. This war is showing us something that may be frightening, but it's the reality of the 21st century. It's no longer just about tanks and soldiers. It's about data, cameras, algorithms, patterns of life, intelligence that is built over years, so that in a window of minutes, a decision can completely change history. The question is, if today we're living day 5 just as we are now, what will happen in the coming days, in the coming weeks, in the coming months? For my part, from here, from Israel, I continue telling you what is happening in this war, which is now becoming a regional war. Subscribe to the channel, share this video, and don't leave without giving us a like. See you next time.